Orhan is a lonely loser virgin known as a jack of all trades who can learn nearly any skill yet is always outshined, struggles with his own limitations and searches for a way to overcome them when Oliver, the party leader and his childhood friend, gently but firmly tells him he is being removed from the hero party because his presence now holds them back. While Oliver tries to soften the blow, Ellie and Derek bluntly label Orhan as dead weight, a judgment Oliver silently acknowledges as partly true, and he asks Orhan to resign. Heartbroken, Orhan recalls how they formed the party 8 years ago, rose to S rank together, and even reached the 94th floor of the Great Southern Dungeon, making Oliver's decision hard to accept. Oliver explains that although Orhan's support magic once mattered, a recent joint raid showed him how inferior Orhan's abilities are compared to another S-rank support mage. A truth Orhan cannot deny, since his magic has always been mediocre despite his efforts, something he attributes to abandoning his original path as a swordsman to become a support mage solely to balance the team. Before the argument can continue, Derek interrupts and bluntly states that Orhan only became an enchanter because Oliver surpasses him as a swordsman. While Orhan can fight and use support magic, his overall ability is merely average, and Oliver admits he has already secured a new enchanter, making Orhan unnecessary. Knowing the others dislike him and hearing this directly from Oliver convinces Orhan there is no reason to stay, so he rises and leaves. As he goes, Anelli coldly remarks that she is relieved he will no longer order them around and adds that while his skills are enough for an A-rank adventurer, someone as inferior as him does not belong in an S-rank party. Stung by her words, Orhan resolves to prove himself by challenging the southern dungeon alone. Though his swordsmanship is lacking, it is sufficient against goblins, and with support magic he continually buffs himself to ease each fight. The timing is difficult, but he believes practice will let him cast seamlessly in battle and silence those who call him worthless. After finishing his hunt, he heads to the teleportation crystal to register access to the 7th floor, only to notice another party rushing toward it at the same time. He starts to walk away, unwilling to involve himself with strangers, but hears the party panicking after being ambushed by orcs and abandoning one member while escaping. Their leader convinces himself it was the right choice since fighting would have meant death, and when asked about going back, he refuses, knowing they lack the strength. Orhan overhears this and, though it isn't his concern, cannot tolerate someone being left behind, so he confronts the leader and insults him. When one member angrily tries to strike Orhan, claiming weakness left them no choice, Orhan effortlessly throws him down, calls him worthless, and demands to know where the girl was left. Elsewhere, the abandoned girl is cornered by advancing orcs and desperately raises a barrier, but with no escape, her fear turns to tears as they break through. At the final moment, a wind spell blasts the orcs back, allowing Orhan to step in and shield her, leaving her stunned that anyone came at all. Before she can speak, the orcs attack again, and Orhan moves to intercept them, leading Sophia to assume he is a swordsman until she sees him cast support magic on himself mid-battle. Orhan cuts an orc in half, enchants his blade with sharpness to finish the rest, and realizes there are far more enemies than expected, explaining why the party fled, though for someone of his skill, it is still easy. When the orcs rush him together, he cuts them down effortlessly, leaving Sophia stunned beyond words. After checking if she is unharmed and escorting her out of the dungeon, Orhan starts to leave, but she stops him to thank him properly and introduces herself as Sophia Claudel. Recognizing the Claudel name and the crest on her cloak, Orhan introduces himself in return, and despite trying to refuse, he accepts her insistent invitation to dinner. She takes him to a modest restaurant she loves, where Orhan notices the same crest displayed outside, making it clear she belongs to the powerful Night Sky Silver Rabbits Guild, causing him to reconsider getting involved with her as things may become complicated. Sophia suddenly notices her sister Selma sitting at a nearby table and goes to speak with her, learning Selma stopped by for dinner after a meeting. Selma quickly questions why Sophia is out so late with a man, assuming she is too young to be dating, but then realizes the man is Orhan, whom she knows well. Sophia is shocked by their connection, while Orhan immediately recognizes Selma Claudel, the famed leader of the Silver Rabbits' strongest S-rank party and the continent's most powerful enchanter, whose ideals were used to justify his own expulsion. Though he knows Sophia belongs to the Silver Rabbits, he never expected her to be Selma's sister and cannot understand Selma's visible anger, as he recalls never offending her. Selma confronts him, accusing him of taking her 14-year-old sister on a late-night date, and although Orhan calmly denies any romantic intent, his blunt wording only angers her further. Sophia pleads with Selma to stop, reminding her that Orhan saved her life, and upon hearing this, Selma immediately apologizes for her behavior and thanks him. The three then sit together, giving Orhan and Selma their first real chance to speak calmly. Orhan recalls meeting Selma during the previous month's raid, where they worked closely together as enchanters, with him mostly assisting her, and she acknowledges his help while noting it was expected of someone from the hero's party, only for Orhan to reveal he is no longer part of it. Selma is stunned, unable to see why such a useful member would be cast aside, and quickly takes the chance to offer him work, but Orhan explains he plans to adventure alone and cannot join her clan. She clarifies that she only needs him for a paid teaching expedition starting tomorrow, focused on training new recruits over 3 days on floor 50, already led by A-rank adventurers, though she would feel more at ease with him there given his proven skill. While honored by her respect, Orhan admits he was expelled for being seen as a weaker enchanter and refuses to confine himself to a support role again, politely declining. Selma accepts his answer despite her surprise, but Sophia begs him to reconsider, saying she would feel safer with him along, and though Orhan resists returning to his old role, her plea softens him enough that he promises to think it over before deciding. Selma is satisfied that Orhan is willing to consider her offer, but he makes it clear he will only accept if he can fight with his sword, as he no longer wants to rely solely on enchantments. She is shocked by the idea, having never seen an enchanter turn to swordplay, and doubts his skill, though she assumes he would fall back on magic if things went poorly. She instructs him to come to the Silver Rabbit HQ early the next morning if he decides to join, and they part for the night. On his way home, Orhan stops by a familiar weapon shop to talk with the elderly owner, who serves him tea and thanks him for bringing in customers through his recommendations. Orhan then explains that he has been expelled from the hero's party and can no longer support the shop as before, offering an apology. The old man reassures him that no apology is needed, reminding Orhan that his worth has never depended on his title and that his past help already means a great deal. He tells Orhan that even without the hero's name, he remains a hero at heart and should live for himself while continuing to help others as he chooses. Vince, the clan leader, thanks the young man for coming and mentions he has heard much about him, including his departure from the hero's party, but Orhan avoids the topic and asks about the teaching expedition instead. Selma explains that in 3 days they will head to the 51st floor of the Great Southern Labyrinth, stopping on the 21st floor the first day and the 36th on the second. This recalls an earlier moment when Selma told the Rabbit clan leader that Orhan leaving the heroes was a serious loss, as his support magic elevated the entire team. Though his spells were weaker than average, his enchantment speed was 4 times faster than hers. He used original magic, and he excelled at analyzing battles and supporting allies at the perfect moment, making him an ideal enchanter whose absence doomed the party. Vince had found it hard to believe someone like Orhan was discarded, but his subordinate explained that enchanters rarely receive proper recognition, with famous ones overrated and truly skilled ones like Orhan ignored. Back in the present, Orhan reviews the plan. 10 rookie groups will be escorted by 5 veterans, including himself and Selma, with the rookies rotating monster combat while the escorts intervene only if something abnormal occurs. Orhan questions why only 5 escorts were assigned instead of more A-rank groups, arguing it would reduce risk given the tight schedule and the rookies' safety, but Selma replies that the beginners need hardship to grow, a reason Orhan doubts yet knows he won't be told the truth. He still offers his help and receives Vince's thanks along with a reward of 2 gold coins up front and 10 more upon success, which Orhan finds generous despite admitting it's a year's worth of living expenses for an average citizen, prompting Selma to say that reflects his worth, so he vows to do his best. Hours later, at the dungeon entrance, he finds the rookies preparing and notices Sophia wearing the same beginner's uniform as before, compliments her appearance, and makes her blush, while Selma teasingly remarks on his charm and asks if he has a girlfriend. Orhan admits he doesn't, saying he likely learned how to handle women from his old mixed-gender party, which reminds Selma that the heroes once lived together, and when Sophia asks where he lives now, he answers that he stays at an inn, causing Selma to panic at her sister's curiosity before Sophia hurriedly claims she was just asking out of interest. Selma asks why Orhan is keeping his distance from the rookies, and he explains that as an outsider, he chose to stay back so they would not feel more anxious, prompting Selma to ask him to help calm them while she sends Sophia to her team. Orhan then follows Selma to meet the 3 adventurers assigned as escorts, where the Silver Rabbit praises him as a reliable companion, earning everyone's trust, though Orhan asks her not to raise expectations. After Orhan states he will act as the attacker, the blue-haired man introduces himself as Anthem, a defender, Bernard as another defender, and Kathy as the healer, forming what Orhan sees as a balanced group, though he grows wary, knowing someone else would have been forced into the attacker role if he had not joined. Noticing his reaction, Selma recalls her talk with Vince, who acknowledged her loss of a powerful asset but insisted Orhan, being an enchanter like her, could not stay in the first squad for balance reasons, a decision she accepted despite lamenting that the Silver Rabbits had stagnated since last year, which led her to invite Orhan on the expedition. He agreed only on the condition that he fight as a swordsman, and Selma can only hope he truly performs as a frontline attacker when it matters. After parting from the escorts, Selma brings Orhan to the rookies, steps forward, and announces that they will begin their descent to the 51st floor of the Great Southern Labyrinth. She senses the rookies' fear about entering such a deep dungeon so early and calms them by promising powerful backup, then introduces Orhan and reveals he has reached the 94th floor, a feat beyond even Selma and the kingdom's elites, shocking everyone and turning him into an instant focus despite his request to keep expectations low. Selma names him the dungeon's main reference and mentions his past in the hero's party, making him a celebrity, And though Orhan complains she put him on an impossible pedestal, she insists it was needed to steady the rookies, while he privately hopes the fame only helps his grandfather's shop and brings no trouble. She assigns him to guide Team 10, the most promising newcomers, and gives his hand a reassuring squeeze, though he doubts trusting outsiders so easily. Meeting Team 10, which includes Sophia, he briefly thinks someone is missing before realizing the trio is complete and worries about their small size, until one boy confidently claims no one can match their pace, making Orhan dread how insufferable he will be later. He has them introduce themselves: Logan Hayward, an enchanter who vows to surpass Selma; Caroline Inglot, a defender who refuses armor or shield and prefers dodging because she hates being touched, yet chose close combat to kill monsters; and Sophia Claudel, a rear-line attack mage. Orhan warns Caroline that dodging is harder than blocking, learns the others opposed her choice, cuts off their argument, and soon notices how difficult the mission may be until they fall silent inside the labyrinth. Caroline questions why a former hero's party member from a rival clan is escorting them, and Orhan says only that he left that group. Then, when pressed about Sophia's praise, she blushes and admits Orhan once saved her life, is incredibly strong, and used to belong to the hero's party. She recalls her sister saying there was nothing to fear as long as Orhan was there, though he never saw himself as a hero, and assumes Selma only meant to comfort her. When two wolves leap from the shadows, they are instantly trapped by magic. Orhan prepared for rear ambushes, confirming his foresight and saving time for harder fights. By the 20th floor, he judges the rookies capable of finishing the expedition safely. Logan, once dismissed as cocky, is a talented enchanter with poor leadership but high potential. Caroline excels as a fast dodge-type defender, yet her recklessness and low firepower worry him. Sophia is quiet but already above average, held back only by hesitation and teamwork, with no clear weaknesses limiting her growth. With the escort's help, Selma's group defeats the floor boss, registers the achievement, and ends the day, after which Orhan admits their potential but laments their teamwork and remains uneasy about Caroline, prompting Selma to note she has already improved, making him wonder how bad she was before. The next morning, Orhan is shocked to see a front-page article announcing a new Heroes Party enchanter and publicly exposing his expulsion, and he crushes the paper, fearing how others will judge him. On his way to the meeting point, he meets Luna, a kind former teammate absent during his expulsion due to family matters, and she urges him to return, revealing she alone still believes but promises to convince the others. Though moved, Orhan refuses, saying it is too late after the article, and when she mentions their vow to clear the Great Labyrinth together, he says that promise died when Oliver expelled him, leaving in frustration while admitting he truly wanted them to remain together. Even as he accepts, there's no going back. On the way, Orhan reflects on his banishment from the Heroes Party and how today's newspaper exposed it, likely confusing the new recruits who had been reassured by Selma's praise, only for the truth to shatter those expectations. When he reaches the dungeon entrance, he finds the rookies waiting, their changed atmosphere making it obvious they have all read the paper and are whispering about him no longer being part of the Heroes Party, while Logan notes that things would have been different had Orhan left by choice instead of being labeled as too weak. Orhan greets them but receives mixed reactions, realizing he is no longer welcome because of a headline. Selma soon arrives with Anthem, Bernard, and Kathy and apologizes for the misunderstanding she caused by emphasizing his past, but Orhan reassures her, urges her to lead confidently, and offers his support. Anthem, Bernard, and Kathy agree that regardless of his fallout with the Heroes Party, Orhan remains one of the few people alive to have reached the 94th floor and survived. Free from the constant scrutiny, Orhan rejoins his party, where Sophia and Caroline warmly greet him while Logan remains unsure how to act. To ease the tension, Orhan asks if they read the newspaper. The girls dismiss it as lies, but Logan, unfamiliar with it, asks if the report was true. Orhan admits it was technically accurate, as he was expelled from the Heroes Party for being deemed too weak, and apologizes for hiding it, saying he is not the hero people expect. Sophia immediately refutes this, insisting he is incredibly strong after witnessing him defeat a massive orc horde alone, and Orhan thanks her before assuring the group that, though no longer a hero, he can still easily help them reach the 51st floor and asks for their trust. The girls accept this, but Logan feels disappointed and betrayed. Soon after, they enter the dungeon, where recruits are tasked with advancing from the 21st to the 35th floor, and Orhan is required to stay back and observe, only intervening if the situation becomes dangerous. The party advances without trouble as Caroline clears the 24th floor using her twin daggers and close-quarters style, while Sophia handles the stronger monsters on the 30th floor, surprising Orhan and making him question his earlier judgment of her. Upon reaching the unfamiliar middle floors on level 31, Orhan leads ahead to scout and soon senses goblins nearby along with a stray orc, prompting him to prepare the group. Confident in the rookie's abilities, he orders Caroline to take the goblins and instructs Sophia to deal with the orc using long-range magic. Caroline rushes into combat as Sophia prepares to engage, while Logan is told to provide support but casts agility spells on Caroline before Orhan even finishes speaking, privately doubting how impressive Orhan's guidance really is. The situation worsens when the sight of the orc triggers Sophia's PTSD, causing her to freeze in panic instead of attacking. With Logan fully occupied supporting Carol, the situation looks dire until he notices Orhan slowing the charging orc with a magic sign, then calmly reassuring Sophia to aim carefully and trust her strength, prompting her to unleash a massive fireball that obliterates the orc and shocks everyone, even Orhan, who had no idea she could use advanced magic. Caroline rushes to hug Sophia as Orhan praises her, and soon they reach the 35th floor, where a dead tarantula sends Logan into panic, convinced they cannot survive, while Sophia and Caroline instead place their full trust in Orhan. Orhan orders Logan to buff Caroline with agility and strength and boosts Sophia's magic, repeating the same strategy as before, which Logan doubts but follows anyway, then commands Caroline to engage the monster head-on to draw its attention, stopping Logan from interfering and insisting they wait, before instructing Sophia to leap onto the creature and tear its back apart. Sophia instantly grasps the plan, leaping onto the spider's head and slicing it from front to back, after which Orhan orders her to hold its attention while warning her to avoid its venomous strikes. As the spider shifts to stab Caroline with its sharp legs, Caroline narrowly dodges and deflects the attacks, prompting Orhan to tell Logan to maintain his spells on her since her life depends on it. Orhan then directs Sophia to restrain the monster, and she uses her arrow cutter to sever its legs and bring it crashing down. Caroline begins to celebrate, but Orhan warns her too late, as the still-living spider ensnares her in webs and drags her closer. Orhan quickly has Logan boost Caroline's strength and speed, yet she panics and cannot break free, begging for help. Orhan orders Sophia to prepare a rock arrow while enhancing her blades with sharpness magic, allowing her to escape the web's grip and immediately follow up by firing the rock arrow, which obliterates the spider. With the battle over, the day's expedition ends as Orhan praises Logan's support magic, crediting it for their victory, and when they emerge from the caves at sunset, Selma congratulates the rookies on their progress. After praising everyone for their hard work and reminding them that the final stage of the journey would begin the next day, they agreed to rest and eat well before parting ways. But Orhan was stopped by Anthem and Bernard, who invited him to lunch, and after brief consideration he accepted, since it was rare for someone else to treat him. On the way back to the city, Logan questions Sophia about the first time Orhan saved her, and she recalled him using a wind blast before enhancing his sword with magic and cutting down the orcs, which made Logan realize how unusual Orhan truly was, as he had earlier used a debuff to reduce an orc's agility, a type of spell so difficult that even elite mages like Selma could barely cast one after days of preparation. Logan also noticed Orhan's flawless judgment in battle, from precise timing of enhancements to preemptive spells that anticipated enemy movement, leading him to understand that Orhan was not an ordinary mage but a true genius. Back in the city, Orhan entered a tavern with Bernard and Anthem, who told him to order freely at their expense before questioning his true role, since he was once an enchanter in the hero's party, yet now claimed to be a swordsman. Orhan explains that he had dreamed of becoming a swordsman ever since witnessing his grandfather kill a giant beast that wandered into their village, a dream he fulfilled when he joined the hero's party as one. However, as the party descended to lower floors and faced stronger monsters, their progress slowed, and Selma's strategy of relying entirely on an enchanter for decisions became dominant. With no one else suited for the role, Orhan was chosen, and for the sake of the group he gave up his place as a swordsman to become an enchanter. Though he bitterly believes the party has no chance of clearing the deeper levels, he sets those thoughts aside and tells the boys he now aims to become a self-sufficient, well-rounded swordsman capable of conquering lower floors alone, unaware that the hero's party would seek him out in those same dungeons the very next day. The next morning, Orhan heads for the cave, aware it is his final day leading the young party, and finds Sophia and the others waiting near the entrance, greeting him warmly with noticeably more confidence than before, even Logan showing clear trust. Carol announces that Sophia wants to say something since it is the last day and nudges her forward, but Sophia grows too shy to speak, having only confessed to Carol during a bath the night before that she wanted Orhan to stay with the Night Rabbit clan and help them rise higher. Before she can gather her courage, Selma calls Orhan away, and he promises to talk later. As he walks toward the other guides, he overhears rookies discussing that the hero's party is heading to the dungeon for a trial run with their new member, starting from the 92nd floor rather than the deepest 94th. Orhan is stunned, believing a new party should test themselves on lower floors first, but he ultimately dismisses the thought as pointless and refocuses on his own goals. On the 92nd floor, party leader Oliver fires everyone up, saying the dungeon should be easy if they stay alert, then points to their new member Philly, a green-haired enchanter, asking her to show her skills as the tank, and the loud mage mock Orhan, claiming Philly is a proper specialist and won't cause trouble. Luna stays silent in defiance since she never wanted Orhan gone, but Oliver insists this run will prove Orhan was the problem, unaware that Luna was never included in the plan to expel him and only learned the truth during Philly's welcome party that evening. Annalie and Derek ridicule Orhan further, boasting that with a real enchanter they will reach the 100th floor quickly, while Annalie tells Philly they have plenty of money that Orhan was too stingy to spend. Philly grows uneasy and asks if party funds should be used personally, But Annalie dismisses her concern, saying money is useless if not spent. Oliver cuts them off, declaring Orhan irrelevant now, and the group raises their glasses to celebrate Philly joining the party. Luna rushes into the room out of breath and demands to speak with Oliver, then notices Philly, a stranger to her, and asks for privacy, only for Oliver to insist they talk openly. With no choice, Luna blurts out that she heard Orhan is joining a raid with the Night Silver Rabbits and asks how that is even possible. Annalie and Derek are baffled, questioning how someone they called weak could join within 3 days, with Derek assuming Orhan is abusing the S-rank badge he got thanks to their party. Confused, Luna asks what they are talking about, but Oliver tells her to listen as Annalie reveals that Orhan left the party 3 days ago. Shocked, Luna wonders if Orhan finally gave up, until Derek bluntly says they kicked him out for being a loser. Luna turns to Oliver, who calmly confirms it and tries to introduce Philly as the new member, but Luna cuts him off, declaring she will oppose anyone replacing Orhan. Derek angrily tells her to shut up. Oliver calms him down, and then explains to Luna that Orhan was no longer good enough and would only hold the party back. Luna objects to the decision, arguing that Orhan was the party's core and the reason they had come this far, insisting they could not continue without him, but another member mocks her for being the only one who ever thought he mattered and points out it is too late since he was already expelled. Oliver shuts her down and lays out the plan to start working with Philly on the 92nd floor and push toward the 94th, which Luna flatly refuses, saying she has no desire to die like the others. Derek scoffs and reminds her they already reached the 94th floor before, while Luna counters that even with Philly as an enchanter, they should begin lower. Derek stubbornly repeats that they already cleared the 93rd floor, prompting Luna to snap that they must be insane since the 92nd floor has the black dragon they barely survived, only for Annalie to laugh and claim that was due to their former useless enchanter. Oliver insists they only plan to test teamwork and avoid the dragon, but Luna still urges starting much lower until Oliver cuts her off and declares the decision final. Reality then shifts to the party struggling against a mammoth on the 92nd floor, a foe they once defeated easily. Oliver charges but is blocked and knocked back as Derek moves to counter, and when Oliver's buffs fade, his body grows painfully heavy, leading him to question Philly, who admits she has not synchronized their styles yet, shocking him as he recalls Orhan mastering their teamwork within hours. The mammoth fires an energy blast that Derek fails to block, redirecting it toward Anne, who shouts in anger as Derek is left confused by his own weakness. Annalie jumps in with fire magic, but it barely scratches the mammoth, and despite her insistence that she is attacking normally, Oliver orders Philly to boost her again, only for the spell to leave no mark as the mammoth fires back and nearly hits Anne, leaving Oliver stunned that Philly's magic is performing worse than Orhan's. They are suddenly overwhelmed by a monster they had handled easily before, and Oliver snaps back to reality as he barely dodges a power beam while Derek blocks the next one. Oliver orders Annalie to flank the monster, but she is stopped and driven back by a counterattack, forcing her to retreat. He then tells Philly to watch the monster and warn them, but she argues she cannot do that while handling everything else, prompting Oliver to remind her that an enchanter must read the flow of battle. Annalie insults Philly as useless, and Oliver realizes something is wrong since none of them are as strong as before, he cannot draw out his sword's full power, and Philly's magic should have boosted them far more. Before they can act, a black dragon rises from the dungeon and flies toward them, making Luna panic and urge everyone to flee. The dragon lands, effortlessly crushing the mammoth, shocking Oliver because it should not have appeared, yet he stubbornly insists they can defeat it again. Derek braces to block its fireball but is far weaker than expected and is blasted away, and even after taking cover, Philly is struck and knocked unconscious, leaving Luna desperately telling Oliver that they must escape. Oliver has Philly buff him, then charges Strange's attack to clash with the dragon's fireball, barely holding on before the shockwave throws him back and drops him to one knee, dazed and unsure what to do. Luna quickly pulls him together and insists they use an emergency teleport crystal or die there, though Philly warns it will send them straight to a lower-ranked boss room, leaving them no choice. Oliver gathers the team and opens the portal, but the dragon suddenly dives in, knocks them back, and to their horror, slips into the portal before vanishing. Derek initially thinks this is fine, until Luna explains it is the worst outcome since a low-rank adventurer party will now be slaughtered, forcing them to rush back to the guild to order a mass teleport from the dungeon. As they run, Luna reveals they felt so weak because Orhan created original spells that boosted his magic attacks 50-fold, shocking Philly since even Selma could only manage 10-fold, and Luna bluntly states the truth that without Orhan they are merely mediocre adventurers. Oliver refuses to accept that and swears to kill the dragon without Orhan as they race toward the guild, praying no lives have been lost yet. On the 50th floor, Orhan tells his party that once they clear the 51st floor, their mission will be finished and they will return using the teleport crystal, and everyone agrees, yet an uneasy feeling grips him for no clear reason. He scans the area and then the cloud-covered sky, puzzled by the warning in his gut despite everything appearing normal, since the upcoming boss should be easy for seasoned guides and their success seems assured. He cannot understand why his instincts urge them to leave immediately, But Caroline interrupts his thoughts by asking what kind of monsters they will face. Seeing her excitement, Orhan reminds her that as a tank, her duty is to protect the team, not rush in alone. But she argues that defeating enemies by herself would only make things safer for everyone. She insists that a tank belongs on the front lines and claims she always fights that way, then eagerly presses him for more advice on how to improve. Orhan sighs and tells her to stop trying to handle everything alone and start learning teamwork, saying it will matter more in the future when progress depends on relying on others. Caroline dislikes the idea and finds it boring, but Logan urges her to listen and appreciate the advice, quoting the saying that teamwork is dream work from the great adventurer Albert. Orhan asks if he means Albert of the Night Rabbit clan, and Logan excitedly notes that someone else reads instead of charging through dungeons like a barbarian. Orhan explains that Albert was the strongest of the Night Sky Rabbits and supposedly died fighting the Black Dragon on the 92nd floor last year. Logan adds that even in death, Albert became a legend. Carol grows somber and says Albert died protecting a comrade despite that being the tank's role, knowing his family would suffer, yet choosing to do it anyway. She concludes that the best way to defend others is to stay far from them. So she fights alone on the front line while her team remains behind. They will be safe and able to flee if things turn bad. Orhan sees the pain on Caroline's face and decides it is not his place to dig deeper, so he tries to raise the mood by telling her he is counting on her to handle the enemies today, which immediately makes her brighten up and confidently accept. Sophia quickly shifts attention to herself by asking what she lacks and how she can improve as both a teammate and a mage, and Logan joins in, saying he also wants to better himself. Orhan tells them to calm down and leads the group into the 36th floor, where the newcomers begin warming up. Selma calls out that this will be their hardest and final day, so everything must go smoothly to ensure success, then notes that the children seem very attached to Orhan. He admits he expected to lose their respect after the newspaper article, but realized they are far smarter and more independent than they appear. Selma agrees, saying they can be troublesome but have a promising future, and explains that Albert's death dealt a heavy blow to their clan, as he was their star, causing them to fall behind while Orhan's former clan, the Heroes Party, rose to the lead. Orhan admits the Black Dragon merely cost them a member, and says losing anyone would have shattered their party, while Selma notes that Albert's absence is still an open wound and bluntly invites Orhan to join them. He thanks her but refuses, saying a party does not need two enchanters, especially when one is the continent's greatest sorcerer, which makes Selma blush as she clarifies she meant him as a swordsman instead. Caught off guard, Orhan listens as she explains she will watch his sword skills today, after which the group divides and he is left supervising 3 newcomers. Caroline worries about getting lost in the maze-like caves, but Orhan reassures her that splitting up is necessary to search multiple paths at once and find the boss room, giving large clans like the Night Sky Rabbits an advantage in scouting. Logan adds that Orhan has reached deeper floors than anyone else, so this area should be safe, prompting Selma and Caroline to crowd around him and question him about the deeper levels and the monsters that live there. Orhan explains that the deep floors begin around level 72, where the terrain turns into snowy mountains filled with blizzards and ice lizards that ambush sleeping adventurers, then tells the group to stay focused and leads them onward. The cave is eerily empty, and Logan notes they have not seen any monsters on this floor and asks if this is normal, but Orhan denies it while sensing something is wrong. Caroline complains about the lack of action until a blue goblin appears from behind a rock, and she charges it immediately. Orhan tries to stop her, but instead slows the goblin with a debuff, allowing her to defeat it in one strike. As she celebrates, Orhan scolds her for attacking recklessly, warning that blue goblins are fast and strong and her move could have endangered Logan and Sophia. Caroline admits her mistake, and Orhan teaches her active defense, telling her to watch the enemy's movements and strike just before it attacks. Orhan explains that using traps would prevent surprise attacks and give the party a major advantage, leaving Caroline amazed until Logan pushes forward for advice. Orhan warns them just as 2 wolves rush from behind and are impaled by a triggered trap, then tells Logan to focus on trap spells so the team can face enemies ahead without worrying about their backs. Logan eagerly listens and silently vows to become a mage like Orhan. Orhan then advises Sophia to practice casting 2 spells at once, assuring her it is easier than it sounds and noting that advanced casters can handle many at once. When Sophia asks why she should not just use stronger magic, Orhan explains that powerful spells require long preparation, leaving her vulnerable, while using multiple spells lets her prepare the next attack before the first fires and eliminates downtime. Soon after, they reach the boss room, where the guides order the newcomers to stay back and watch as they handle the fight. Orhan enters the boss room with his team and tells them to focus on attacking while he supports them, then immediately strikes by slashing the monster's legs at the moment it attacks and forcing it to stumble. He quickly sets a trap behind it, forming a wall that blocks its escape, and Selma follows with multicast magic while the tank shields and the other swordsman ends the fight with one clean blow. The newcomers stare in amazement at the flawless teamwork, and Logan is stunned by how every move is precise and wasted nothing. The expedition continues smoothly, clearing floor after floor until they reach the 50th boss room, where they find a giant crab with an almost unbreakable shell. Selma says Orhan is the strongest and asks him to cut off its massive claw so the rest can finish it and go home to celebrate. Orhan smiles and steps forward as the tank warns him about the shell's toughness, but he leaps up and strikes the crab's joint, slicing through the huge claw with ease and removing its main threat. With that, Selma and the others defeat the monster quickly, and everyone applauds as the mission ends and they prepare to leave. The mood suddenly shifts when Orhan feels overwhelming dread and reality itself cracks open, and a black dragon bursts from the rift and flies straight toward them. Only one of them can still think clearly, while the other A-rank guides remain frozen under the crushing pressure. The immobilized rankers wonder why a monster would appear on such a low floor. Selma can barely think, let alone move, but she understands she must take command to help the rookies escape. The dragon's aura thickens the air, making it hard to breathe, and memories of the Black Dragon's brutal massacres flood her mind. Orhan desperately searches for a solution and suddenly recalls that the floor boss is already defeated, meaning the crystal at the cave's end can teleport them out. It is their only escape. He turns to rally the others, only to find them entranced, staring at the beast. That is dangerous, since monsters are drawn to crowds, and this dragon will be no different. If they stay, they will be wiped out. For a moment, Orhan considers running to the crystal alone, knowing he could survive, but he rejects the idea in disgust. He chooses instead to confront the dragon and buy time for the others to flee, swearing he will not abandon them and will bring the monster down. He draws his sword with firm resolve to protect those he cares about and shouts for the other guides to take their positions, snapping them out of their shock. Selma also regains her composure and orders everyone into a defensive formation to shield the rookies, and the A-rank adventurers move at once. A mage raises a barrier to absorb the dragon's attack, but Selma knows it is far too weak to fully stop it. Orhan charges the dragon without hesitation and casts his own protective spell to strengthen the group, barely saving them from certain death and leaving them shaken at how close they came to being burned to ashes. He evades the dragon while retreating carefully, never giving it a chance to build momentum, then pulls a small dagger and throws it at its eye. The dragon shuts its eye to protect itself, which is exactly what Orhan intended, as he leaps forward and swings for its head, releasing a powerful shockwave that fills the cave with dust and smoke and makes the guides think the monster has fallen. Orhan remains cautious, and when the dust clears, the dragon roars and rises again, completely unharmed. He orders the guides to surround and protect the rookies at all costs while he keeps the dragon busy, and though Selma looks uncertain, Orhan smiles and tells her not to worry because he already has a plan. He orders the rookies to stay back and leaps toward the dragon, which answers with a blast of fire that he narrowly avoids, darting around the creature to draw its focus. Selma and the others stare in awe at his skill and nerve, shocked that he chose to face the beast alone. Selma doubts whether letting him fight is right, especially since this is the same dragon that killed the hero Albert, and she realizes how deeply she cares for him and how unbearable it would be to lose him. Orhan remains fully focused, evading strike after strike and even hurling one attack back at the dragon, further enraging it. Logan and Sophia are stunned by the reflection spell, something even elite mages cannot use, as it is Orhan's own creation that returns magic with double force. Yet the dragon's scales resist the blow and it stands unharmed, forcing Orhan to accept he must take risks. He casts a multicast status boost, forming 6 magic circles at once, a feat that impresses Selma since most high-level mages struggle with 3. She considers helping, knowing even this may not be enough, but before she decides, Orhan stacks another all-stat boost and then adds yet another enhancement. After stacking and doubling his stats 6 times, an act believed to be impossible, Orhan leaves the guides stunned as his body glows with lightning. The dragon attacks anyway, unaware of such power, but Orhan vanishes and reappears on a ledge so fast Selma thinks he teleported. Shaking, she realizes he has surpassed every support mage and reshaped how magic is viewed. He unleashes new spells and lands, but blood runs from his nose because his human body cannot withstand the strain, and his mana drains rapidly from sustaining dozens of spells at once. Knowing he must end the fight quickly, he charges the dragon, dodges its strikes, and leaps to attack from above. When the dragon swings its tail, Orhan forms a mana platform to stand on, making the blow miss. Logan is stunned, suspecting another original spell. Orhan then uses magic convergence to draw surrounding mana into a focus point, a power Oliver shares but uses only for offense while Orhan handles defense. He charges the dragon again, sharpening his blade before striking and finally lands a crushing cut across its neck, slicing through armor and scales until the beast crashes to the ground. Logan and Sophia cheer, believing it finished, but Selma knows it is only wounded, while Orhan staggers from exhaustion yet forces himself to keep attacking so it cannot recover. She wants to help but remembers even their strongest warriors fail to harm it, leaving her powerless. The dragon rises and blasts fire to push Orhan back, then surrounds itself with dark magic and hurls countless spears that he barely avoids with his speed. As he dodges, Orhan recalls the bright days of childhood with Oliver before bandits destroyed their village and killed everyone they loved, leaving them to bury the dead and swear to grow stronger so nothing could ever be taken from them again. Drawing strength from those memories, he steps out of the dust and advances on the dragon, refusing to retreat even in the face of death. The dragon begins charging its deadliest technique, an attack so feared it is known as living death. Orhan braces himself as magical spears fire toward him, weaving between them by inches while charging forward. He launches a fireball to distract it and swings for its head, but his blade bounces off as the scales harden like an unbreakable shield. Retreating quickly, he dodges most of the spears and raises a barrier for cover. The dragon shifts tactics, curving a spear from behind in a strike that would kill anyone else, yet Orhan deflects it with inhuman reflexes. He keeps pressing the assault, moving constantly to stop the dragon from targeting the rookies, briefly recalling when he once fought with a team before forcing the thought away and renewing his vow to conquer the dragon alone. He activates a trap card that pelts the beast with relentless accuracy, buying time to channel a convergence spell into his sword, forming a blackened blade like Oliver's ultimate attack. With all his power, he cleaves through the dragon's magic and strikes its chest. But before victory can be claimed, the dragon rises again and attacks, driving Orhan into non-stop evasive movement. As his buffs fade, he pours his remaining mana into one last boost and slams the dragon with a powerful blow that sends it crashing from the sky, yet it still rises. Gasping, Orhan realizes they are both at their limit and his sword shatters in his hands. Choosing to finish the fight or fall trying, he forms a dark void and condenses the surrounding energy into a focused blade, gripping it tightly. The dragon fires magic spears, but Orhan dodges with his final strength, using blocking and reflection to disorient it. Launching himself off a reflected spell, he rushes forward and strikes the dragon's head with his strongest attack, triggering a massive explosion that fills the area with dust. When it clears, Selma finds Orhan alive and barely standing, unaware that he has just become the first person to defeat the Black Dragon alone. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.